Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. I hope you guys are doing well and staying safe. As you can see, there's a little bit of change in our video today. We've actually had a lot of complaints about the video quality and audio quality, so we're trying something new today. Do comment below and let us know how this is working for you guys. Well, we had so many messages in our inbox and it was flickering with all about our course outline, what we actually have in our course outline. So today we've made a video on what we actually teach you guys. So as you know, the course we call it IELTS Preparatory Classes, and this is an English speaking test that tests your English level proficiency, and it's for non-native speakers for English language. And as you know, there are no requirements for it. People can do it for general or academic IELTS. That is, academic IELTS is for the purpose of studying further in overseas countries. And all other purposes, work-related, visa-related, immigration-related, you'll do general IELTS. So the duration we have for our course is 6 weeks. But there are some extra time, and I'll get back to it. I'll get onto that a little later on this video. Cool? So the course hours per week, that's written there 20, but it's actually between 10 and 20. As you know, we'll have 6 weeks course, so there'll be 5 weeks, 5 days of classes in a week. And our class, we could say it will be for 2 hours, but there is no actual time limit. So it can be for 2.5 hours or even 3 hours in that day, because we actually have a planned out on what day, on what activities we're supposed to get done. And we actually try to finish all of that in that specific day. So it could be, as we give individual attention to each of our students, and we have to correct and make sure everyone understands all the things we're doing and everyone's at that same place. So we try that we actually do everything within the time. And if we don't, then we do take that extra time in that 2 hours. So the course per week could be between 10 to 20. Cool? The total lectures you'll have is 30 lectures. So as you can see, in that 6 week, we've actually divided our process into 2 sections. One is the training and one is the practice, as you can see in our tabs on the top over here. So the training section, that's for 4 weeks, and the practice part is for 2 weeks. In the training section, we actually do the 4 components. So those 4 components would be for the listening, reading, writing, and speaking. The other 2 practice sessions would be overall just to practice. As you know, everything we teach within those 4 weeks, we have to practice it so that we could actually be able to do it on the test day. If we don't practice and we don't get used to all of that, then there's no chance that we could apply those on our test day. So, in our training, the hours per week would be 10 hours, and total lectures you'll have 20, as we'll do 5 days of classes. So each lecture for the 4 components, that will take you to 20 lectures altogether. So first we'll move on to the listening part. In the IELTS listening, so the component duration of this listening test would be 5 days. The total hours would spend is 10 hours, but if you could tell, that is just the minimum. So as I said, we would say there's a 2-hour class, but it could lead up to even 3 hours maximum. The total lectures we'll have is 5. So in the listening component, as you know, there are 4 sections. And in those 4 sections, there are 10 questions each. And in that 10 questions each, that means 40 questions altogether that you have to answer. And for that 40 questions, you'll have a 30 minutes audio playing. So in that audio, you'll answer those 40 questions. And then you'll have a 10 minutes at the end if you're doing a paper-based test, so that you can transfer your answers from the question booklet to the answer sheet. So let's move on to the component outline. So here's the component outline that we've put into a table. So as you can see, there's a column for the days, because we'll have 5 days. And there's a column for classwork on what we'll do in class. And there's a column for homework. Please don't be surprised. We actually do give homework. And homework is one of the main things that you have to do so that we know that you guys are actually understanding what we're teaching. And we'll start with the general things first. As you can see, The first day you have general strategies. That's for all the 4 sections that will help you to do those tests. In that, if you could tell and remember, I had told you that the listening component is same for the general and academic IELTS. So these general strategies is totally saying general as in talking about the 4 sections. It will help you in all 4 of the sections. So first of all, on the first day of the component, we actually do a mock test. So similarly, you could see the first thing written here is mock test of listening. So you'll have a listening mock test on that day. And so we could tell, and you could also see your progress that on what level you were before you came into our course. So the next things we'll do is we'll teach you on how to make assumptions. That is one strategy we'll look into, and then we'll look into listening for words and numbers and actually listening for time as well. So words and numbers, it might seem really easy that okay, I'm supposed to try to listen to words and I'm trying to listen to numbers, but you could actually be surprised that there's a lot of different ways in people say words and numbers, and there's a lot of different accents. And you could remember that in the IELTS, there's a lot of different accents that could be used. So, for example, for the words, when we say words, we're actually trying to think about when they actually pronounce the letters as well. So, understanding the different letters when they say P and B. So, whenever they talk on a telephone in a native English country, they actually ask on the telephone, are you saying B for Bob or P for Peter? So in that sense, listening for words is very important. Listening for numbers, on the other hand, it's similar. Like, for example, the numbers 1101. There's a lot of different ways people can say it. For example, 1101, 1101, or 1101. So we're trying to help you in listening to all these numbers, as sometimes if you can tell the number 13, 33, and 30, they're kind of similar. If you actually, when you hear it, it may seem very easy to you, but actually when you're doing something on a time-bound test, for example, how IELTS is, in listening to that, sometimes you can make mistakes. So we help you and teach you on how to listen to numbers in time-bound situations. And especially time. Time is one important factor, as we have noticed a lot of students here in Pakistan have this problem in that they don't know how English way of time is told. For example, what is 1:15? What is 12:30? Or what is 11:15? So we teach you all of that in that day 1. So the homework that you would get for day 1 is some exercises. For example, understanding the numbers. So as we did listening for numbers, now you're going to do a homework that's for understanding the numbers. So we could see if you're actually getting used to it. And another exercise would be understanding the alphabets, similar to words. So you can differentiate between these letters and actually pick up if they're saying but or put. The other exercise you'll have is distinguishing similar sounds. That is very similar to the words activity that we'll do in class, and also the skill exercise that you'll be doing for understanding the alphabets. So it's quite interlinked. So on the second day, we'll move on to the section 1 conversation. And on that section 1 conversation that we have, so as you know, that section 1 topic that you get is usually about a conversation talk that you listen to. And in that, there are chances you can get a form or a table to fill, or even choose answers from a list. So we always teach you on how to complete the form or the table, or even how to choose the answers from a particular list that they give you. And for homework, we tell you some practice skills. For example, as you know, because you're actually doing some strategies in class, we also try to give you tests as well so that you can practice them at home. And so for that second day, if you could see, the first thing written there is practice listening test. So we'll give you a particular listening test that you'll have to do at home and bring your answers to the class. And The other two homework will be a skill exercise, which is for listening for emotions and listening for explanations. So that is just normal exercises that you could, if you can hear a listening audio and try to see and try to listen if you can understand what kind of emotion does the speaker have. Is he sad or is he happy? Or even try to listen for explanations on what they give as their reasonings. So on day 3, we move on to the second section, which is the monologue, and specifically we've written here, the talk. So in that, we help you in trying to complete sentences, how you can complete sentences, those question types that you get for the section 2, and how you can label a diagram, plan, or a map that is specifically given in section 2's. The other thing we help you in is how to give short answers. So all this is covered on the day 3. In the day 3, we give you homework as another listening test, of course, so that you don't lose out of practice, so you don't get out of practice, And we give you another 2 skill exercises. One is listening for description and the other is for frequency. So if you could see, we've given you some specific skills that actually helps you in understanding the audio diet you'll get for the listening test. On the day 4, we move on to the section 3, which is like a discussion type audio that is played, as you'll have at least 2 to 4 speakers in that audio. So in the day 4, we teach you how to choose and answer from multiple choices. So the multiple choice questions you get, how you can answer them, how you'll label a diagram, and how to match words and phrases. So these are particular types of skills that are gotten from the question types you can get for the section 3. So for that day, the homework you're given is another practice test, and you'll get a skill exercise for listening for similar meaning and also for classifications. So similar meanings are kind of like you're trying to help in your synonyms, your vocabularies, for what particular word you get, and you have to find another word that is the synonym for that particular word. And also for classifications, as you know, to try to figure out what kinds of things they are. So you classify them. Cool? So for day 5, you will do work on the section 4, which is like a talk or a lecture, as it's a monologue for a academic style audio. So in that, we'll teach you how to classify words or statements, so how you understand them, and how to complete notes and even flowcharts. As you always, not always, sometimes there are chances that you can even get a timeline. So timelines and flowcharts they're kind of similar if you think about it, because you'll have blanks and they kind of link into the next one. So flowcharts actually have arrows, and timelines, they don't have arrows, but they have years, or they have a sort of time showing that, okay, in this year or in this month this thing happened, and the next month and the next month and the next month. So it has blanks that you'll have to fill. And then for that particular 5th day, you'll have homework for a practice test, so that we could always see in your progress on how you're going with the practice test. So as you know, these practice tests always have time bound of that 30 minutes audio playing while you have that answers. And so we always try to give you feedback on maybe what kind of mistakes you're making. So for example, it could be your spellings, could be your writing, and we also try to pick on each of these days that what are the kind of mistakes you're making. So we try to see the things we have covered, for example, on that particular one day. So the next time when we've given you the practice test, we're going to see that if you've made any mistakes according to the things we've already taught you, and try to help you in that as well. And so that when you move forward, you actually get a good hand on all these strategies that we've already taught you before. So on that 5th day, you'll have your 4th listening test homework, and then we'll have some skill exercises. So the skill exercises will be for listening for comparisons and contrasts, so trying to see if we could tell the difference between in the audio of when they're telling if two things are similar or not. And also in skill exercise for listening for negative meaning. So trying to understand, sometimes like when they say, that's not an illegal act. So we're trying to see if that has a good meaning to it or a bad meaning to it. Cool? So trying to understand when they say that's not an illegal act. So illegal is kind of like a negative word. So we try to fiddle with negative words and positive words and try to understand if that has negative meaning or a bad meaning in a sense, or a good meaning to it. Then we'll have a skill exercise on listening for chronology. So this actually helps you in that flow chart or even the timeline I was talking about. So that's the whole outline that we have for the listening. So moving on, we'll talk about the IELTS reading. In the IELTS reading, as you know, there are 3 sections. And in that 3 sections, you have a total questions of 40 questions. And if you know, there are the 2 differences, so the general and the academic. So they have the difference in the reading component. And so we have some strategies that are specifically for reading academic, and there are some specific strategies for reading general. But there are also some there are some basic exercises that we do for the whole reading test that you need to know. So it doesn't matter if it's general IELTS or academic IELTS, they actually help you in doing your reading test. So let's move on to that. So here's the basic outline that we have. So first column we have for days. As you know, there are 5 days that we work for that component. Then we have classwork, and then additionally we have homework. So always got to remember that we have homework. So in that full component and those practice weeks, so you never know on which component the student would start on, as we enroll students every week. So maybe your first component could be listening, or it could be reading or writing or even speaking. So homework, as you pass one component and you move on to the next, you get more and more homework as we keep going on. Cool? So for the day 1 for the reading, we've got some basic strategy which looks at overall in the test on what kind of questions we have. So we do some basic strategies first. And we also do how to match information from a list and how to give short answers. So then we've specifically picked out the question types you get in the reading test, and we do some strategies for each of the question types. So giving short answers is one of the question types, and also matching information from a list. So you have some words in the list, and so that are called for the information, and you have to match the statement with the list. Sorry. Then we've got homework. And for the homework, we've got you to do a practice test that is without time, so not time bounding yourself. You can use more than 60 minutes, but you have to do the whole test. So try to answer all the questions and don't have no time limit, so that you could actually understand each and every question and try to apply the strategies we're going to teach you in class. So moving on to day 2. Then we'll teach you how to solve true, false, not given, and yes, no, not given questions. They're kind of similar but also different. True, false, not given actually looks at if the statement is true, false, or not given from the text. But the yes, no, not given is usually for questions that are related to the writer's opinions. And you have to say if that is actually stated there or not, or even if it's not given. So then we actually move on to labeling a diagram, because in the reading test you can also get a diagram like how you get in a listening test, and you'll have to label them so this is more looking towards your comprehension instead of your audio diet. So you have to read the texts and try to figure out on the label, for the diagram, and label it specifically. Then we look at how to complete sentences and how to match sentence endings. So you usually get incomplete sentences and you have a specific amount of sentence endings, and you'll have to try to figure out from the text on for that particular statement which sentence endings will fit best for it. So we teach you some strategies in how to do matching sentence endings and how to complete those sentences. So basically that could be fill in the blanks as well. And then for that specific day, we have another practice test homework that you'll be given, and that again, no time bound. Cool? So in the day 3, we have specifically moved that to academic and general. So in that time, we have the third class separately for academic students and separately for general students, because then these are some skills that you need specifically for academic IELTS reading and some specific for general IELTS reading. So for example, for academic IELTS, we teach you on how to make predictions using your first paragraph and also the topic sentence. So if you don't know, the topic sentence is usually the first or the second sentence of your paragraph that could actually tell basically what the whole paragraph would be about. So if you don't know, we'll specifically get into that, and we teach you that in our component in our course. So the other thing we look for is how to look for specific details. So we try to teach you in how you can look for these specific details. So looking at keywords and trying to pick out, okay, this is the information we have to pick. And we also look into how to analyze the questions and answers. So we try to look more in depth in understanding the questions and how we're going to look for the answers. And also how to identify the task. So we look at specific areas in the then we look more specifically into the questions and also the text and how to implement all these techniques and how to figure out on how to answer all those questions that you get in the test. So for this general reading, it's sort of similar, and it teaches you on how to make predictions first. As you know, in the general reading IELTS, the text is comparingly smaller to academic IELTS. So in the academic IELTS reading, the texts are long, and in the general, they're pretty much shorter, and that could be like newspaper articles, magazine articles, even a recipe. So they're quite short. So we try to help you in making how you can make predictions in what the answers could be or what you're actually looking for and how to find the answers. We also teach you some strategies in what can help you to find your answers. And the last one is similar to academic, how to identify the tasks. So we tell you specifically, looking at questions, we'll tell the strategy helps you in looking at questions and actually figuring out what the task is telling you to do. So for that specific day, we also have a practice reading test, which is again not time bounded. So the reason why we have without time is so that you could actually look at all this, what we teach you in class, so all these strategies, all the tricks we teach you, and try to apply them in the reading test. And similar to listening, we always keep looking back if all the things we've taught you, are you actually able to do them in the test now after we've taught you this? For example, using the first paragraph to make predictions. Are you actually implementing it in your test while you're doing it? So moving on, we'll move on to day 4. In the day 4, we'll look at the other question types, a few other question types. For example, choosing headings and how to match information. So as you know, sometimes in the questions you can get, for each paragraph, they'll give you, probably if you have 5 paragraphs, they'll give you 8 headings. And they'll tell you, for each paragraph, choose a heading. So we teach you some techniques that help you in looking at how you can pick headings for each paragraph. What are the techniques we use to look for each paragraph? As you know, there are sometimes not that much time to actually read the whole paragraph and understand it completely and then choose the headings, because IELTS is all about time bounding. So then we look into matching information. So similarly to match information from a list, but this time you're going to match information differently. Then we move on to choose answers from a list. So in this, there could be options of fill in the blanks, and you'll have those blank options in a box. and you'll have to choose from one of them to which answer is actually correct for that particular question, and how to classify information. So how to actually put it in different kinds. So this information, match it with one topic. For example, they can give you'll have a frog and a toad. That will be your two options. And then you'll have a certain amount of information, and you'll have to tell specifically which one is for frogs and which one is for toads. That is what it actually means by classifying information. So you tell which kind of information, like for which kind the information is for. So again, for day 4, you'll have another practice reading test, and that again without time bounding. So then we move on to day 5. On the day 5, we'll teach you on how to complete notes and summaries. So that again is kind of like fill in the blanks, but we'll tell you techniques on how to tackle these question type. Then we move on to completing tables and flowcharts. In that, it's kind of like how you'll have tables and flowcharts in your listening test, but in this, you actually have to read the information and try to fill the tables and the flowcharts. And then lastly, we'll tell you about how to do multiple choice questions. As you can see, we cover up all the question types that you can get in the reading test. But on the day 5, the difference here is you'll get another practice reading test, but in that it would be time bounded of that 60 minutes that you have to do. And we always keep telling you, we'll have some techniques that help you in doing all these 40 question types. Sorry, not 40 question types, all those 40 questions that you get in the test, to try to do them all in 60 minutes. So when you get into our course, you'll get to know that well. So moving on to the next component, which is IELTS Writing. Again, IELTS Writing is made up of 2 tasks, task 1 and task 2. And as you all would know, they have an academic version for the writing test and the general version for the writing test. So the task 2 is both the same for academic and general. The difference is in the task 1. In the task 1 for the academic version, you'll get a graphic, and in that graphic what you have to do is summarize it. And for the task 1 for the general IELTS, you'll actually have to write a letter. So you'll have 60 minutes to do that task 1 and task 2. But always remember, task 2 holds 2/3 of your band score for writing. So moving on to our outline for the writing. So we've got a separate 2-day outline for the writing task 1 for academic, and then we have a different 2-day general writing outline. So if you're an academic student, then you'll be doing the first 2 days of the academic writing task 1 outline. If you're a general student, then you'll have to do the other 2. Then when you come to the task 2, then the general and the academic IELTS students, they both get into one class to do this. Cool? So I'll try to explain to you on what we have. So specifically, you could see the day column, that's 1, 2. And then for the classwork, as you know, again, we'll have the mock test first. And after the mock test, we'll teach you on how to determine the task. So that actually comes in, the criteria task achievement. And when I told you about how well you do the task. So the first thing we teach is how to determine the task. So how you could tell what the task is actually asking you to do. Then we're looking at how to determine the topic. So we actually try to see what topic is given for that specific graphic that is given to us. Then how to make comparisons. As I would have mentioned before, in the writing task 1, they actually always tell you that you try to make comparisons where relevant. Okay, so making comparisons is one key thing for the writing task 1 for the academic IELTS. So we'll teach you on how to make comparisons to see where's the downfall, where's the major differences, and compare it within the graphics. And then we'll teach you how to make an outline. So outline is like a plan of your writing. And we'll also teach you how to use transition words. This is a general skill for writing that you have for the whole writing style when you have it. So when you move on to day 2, on the day 2, we'll teach you in the specific paragraphs. So we'll go on to the introduction, and we'll go on to the body paragraphs, and then we'll go on to the conclusion as well. And we'll teach you some skills like how to repeat and rephrase. As I would have mentioned before, that in the writing, we actually have to rewrite the question. So repeating and rephrasing would come in the sense of rewriting. Cool? And also how to use pronouns. So that's, again, these two are the general tips that you need for writing. So that's the skills we'll teach you within that first 2 days. And that first 2 days, for the homework, you'll have a writing test. But for that writing test, you'll only have the writing test task 1 as your practice that you'll have for your homework, as you haven't done the skills for the writing task 2. So again, for general writing task 1, similarly, we have that mock test. So you'll have the mock test like how you have in the academic version. And then we'll teach you on how to determine the task for the general writing. As you know, it's a letter, so we'll tell you and teach you how the skills you'll need to know in what the task, so what the letter task is actually asking you to do, who you have to write it to, and all those sorts of things. And then again, we'll teach you on how to determine the topic, so what will your topic be, and then similarly how you made an outline before, not an outline, how you make comparisons in the task 1 for the academic. You're gonna do some brainstorming for ideas, so what you actually have to write in the letter. So we're gonna build some ideas, and we'll teach you how to build those ideas. And how to make an outline, so planning your writing, and then how to transition words is again the general strategy that we have, general tip that we have in the academic IELTS as well. So I've written the same thing on the top and at the bottom, because that's doesn't matter if you're an academic student or you're a general student, you need some general tips, and this is one of the general tips that you have for writing. So moving on to day 2. Again, then we go specifically for the paragraph. So we teach you on how to write the introduction, how to write the paragraph for the body paragraph, and how to write the conclusion. And again, we'll have the same 2 that we had in the academic, and how to repeat and rephrase, so rewriting, and how to use pronouns, so like I specifically. So you actually need to use pronouns specifically in task 2 as well, as task 2 is mostly the most important factor is giving your opinion. Cool? So again, for general writing task 1, the homework you'll get is the practice writing test for task 1 for the general IELTS. So if you could tell, the day 1 and the day 2, as you've seen here, that doesn't mean that these guys will have the class and the general students will have the same class. This means that academic writing students will have a task 1 separate class, and the general IELTS writing student will have a separate class for their writing task 1. They all get together again when they come to their writing task 2. So again, when we come to writing task 2, that will be the day 3, and that's when all the students, either academic or the general IELTS, they'll be together and they'll have a mock test for the task 2. Then we'll look into, of course, as you know, the task achievement criteria is the first criteria. So again, for the writing task 2, we're going to look into how to determine the task, so how we can tell what the task is actually asking us to do. Then we move on to developing a thesis statement, as in for the task 2, it is very important that your essay has a thesis statement, and we actually teach you in our course how to write that thesis statement in a good way. So if you don't know it right now, don't worry about it. So the next thing we have is how to organize your writing. As you know, everyone can write. Everyone writes diaries, people write recipes, everything. And there are all sorts of essays. So we need to know how to organize our writing for the specific IELTS writing, as they have a specific structure that we have to follow. So then we'll teach you on how to organize it. And then we'll move on to how to state your opinion. As I've told you, opinion is something very important in task 2. If you don't have an opinion, your band score can't go higher than 4. So the next thing we teach you is how to generalize and qualify. That is one of the general skills you need for writing. So this applies overall generally for writing, either task 1 or task 2. Cool? So again, we'll have another practice writing test, but now that's for homework. Now in the homework, you'll have task 1 plus task 2. So you'll have the complete writing test for homework. For for day 4, then we have specifically going to the paragraphs, how to write your introduction, so the first paragraph, and then how to write your body paragraph, so the other paragraphs that you have in the middle between the introduction and the conclusion. And we'll talk about how to write the conclusion. And we'll also do a general skill of synonyms, as you need to have a lot of vocabulary for your writing so that you don't repeat the words specifically. So again, in the homework, you'll have a whole complete writing test for practice that you'll do as a homework. So that's task 1 and task 2. So for the 5th day, we'll have some general skills. So we'll do some plural nouns. Then we'll do some commonly misspelled words. So we'll have to identify some words that are actually very commonly misspelled. So we have to try and see if in a specific text you can actually pick them up, because sometimes if you do that specific skills, then it will be very easy for you to identify spelling mistakes on your own writing. Then we look at some parallel structures, some sentence types, and then if you know, in the writing, punctuation is quite important, and the 2 main punctuation that they look for in IELTS is the full stop and the comma. And again, the last thing we'll do is the revision. So the revision is for the whole thing, so the whole task 1 and task 2 that you have. Either one, if you have academic writing or general writing, will have a specific revision for both the writing types, academic or general. And then again, for homework, you'll have the practice writing test. Remember that these homeworks become additional to the homework you'll have for the listening, reading, and even speaking. So if you could see, if you started the week with the writing with us, then you have just about 1 hour homework. You'll have a 20-minute homework first in the beginning, first 2 days. Then you start getting 60 minutes homework for that. But as you move on, when you move on to another component, then you get homework for specifically the component you've already done and the component that you actually started. So your homework starts getting more and more week by week. Cool? So moving on to the last component, which is speaking. So the speaking test that we have, that the component duration is 5 days like every other component, and similarly you have 10 hours. And remember that 10 hours is just minimum, because we might not have 2 hours class, could be 2.5 or even 3 hours. So depending on if we can do all the stuff that we have outlined for the day 1 on time. And the total lectures you'll have is 5. In the speaking test, the test is for 11 to 14 minutes, so it has the least amount of time that you spend for this component. And that consists of 3 parts. As you know, the first part will be a normal interview for yourself, and the second part is when you'll get a topic and you'll have to talk about it for 2 minutes. And then you'll have a part 3, which is a longer discussion. So in that, you'll have questions specifically on the topic you got on the second section. Cool. So let's move on to the outline for speaking test. So as you know, the speaking is the same for the academic students and the general students. So the first column here is for the days. As you can see, we have our 5 days outlined here. the classwork that we have for the day 1, we look for the part 1. So first we'll have a mock test for students on the speaking test. Then we move on to the everyday vocabulary. And for that, we'll try to look for the vocabulary that we use in our day-to-day lives. And that would help you in communicating in your speaking test and also when you move abroad. So the homework you get is we'll give you a skill exercise that is talking about yourself. As you know, the part 1 is an interview, basically specifically just about you. So it's all about your hobbies, could be about you traveling, could be about your opinions on TVs, mobile phones, and it's specifically also talks about your occupation and where you're from or where you live. So you need to get used to in talking about yourself. In the day 2, we're also on the part 1 of our speaking test. So we do some verb tenses. So we try to help you in the tenses that you used. Is it past tense, present, or future in different question types? And we also do some building vocabulary exercises in class. So the homework you'll get for that specific day 2 is a practice speaking test. And for that speaking test, the whole point is to record it, and that's your homework, to do the practice test and record yourself. I know it's sometimes very difficult and it's sometimes very funny to hear yourself speak, but that's what you have to do for homework. So moving on to the third day, we'll move on to the part 2 of our speaking test, in that you have to then we teach you on how to introduce your talk. So specifically when you get a topic, how you should start talking about that topic. And then we tell you the importance of question words. So we teach you about how to, like, what's the importance for those specific question words that you have in that part 2, the type of questions you get on your cue card, so your flash card, also known as the task card, and how to add personal feelings. So specifically when you've mentioned the answers for those questions that are stated in your part 2 flashcard, trying to add personal feelings to it as well. So the homework you get for the day 3 is again a practice test that you'll have to do the test and record yourself, and you'll do some skill exercise for organizing a topic and sequencing. So organizing a topic and sequence is sort of similar if you think about it. It's all about how you can plan your talk for the part 2. As you know, there are some questions that you get on your task card that you're supposed to specifically answer within that 2 minutes, as well as trying to actually talk as long as 2 minutes. Cool? So for the day 4, we go more onto the part 3, which is the discussion, so the follow-up questions on that specific topic you get. So first we look at an introduction on those question types, and like when you get a question specifically, how to introduce that question, in maybe also using that question in your answer, and then how you add supporting details, so how you add your reasonings to it, and how you actually respond to follow-up questions. We tell you some tricks to that as well. Then on the day 4, the homework you can get is the practice speaking test, and you'll have to record yourself again. So no pressure, we have you going as you know. And if you look at it, when you live in a non-native English speaking country, sometimes practicing English speaking is quite difficult. So we try to give you homeworks on things like speaking tests so that you can actually get used to in speaking to yourself. Sorry, not specifically speaking to yourself, but speaking in English. Okay? So for the day 5, we'll tell you some tricks on tips, what you could use to ask for clarification. So just in case you don't understand a question, how you're actually supposed to ask what it actually means, and how to avoid short answers. As you know, the speaking, and in the speaking you should try to avoid yes, no. You should try to make your answers quite longer than that, so that you can actually use that time and try to minus out the question numbers. So the other one is delay tactics. So sometimes if you need some time in thinking, what are the delay tactics you could use? So what are some phrases you could use that would give you some time while you're thinking, and it wouldn't make a bad impression with just having a normal pause? Cool? Then for that day 5, the homework you have again is a practice speaking test, and you're going to record yourself. So do remember, the recording part is important, as you can also monitor your improvements while you record, and also we can monitor your improvements and also give good feedback. As if you did a speaking test without recording yourself, then I'm not too sure how would I be able to tell you what's the faults in the speaking, what do you need to improve in. Cool? So that's the part of our 4 components. So that's our 4 weeks done and dusted. So then we move on to our practice weeks. So as you know, we have 2 practice weeks. So for the practice one, as you know, we get into more practicing time, so that gets more practical. And for that practical version, here's the outline that we have. So for that practice week 1, we have again 5 days. So the way we've put it is, for the day 1, we do a mock test for the listening. As now we've come into practice, now we have to start with each component. So first we do a practice test for a mock test for the listening, and then on that same day we'll try to see where's your weak points. So what are you weak at, what type of questions, or what kind of mistakes are you making? Are they similar to each other? Like, for example, are you making most mistakes in the multi-choice, or is it labeling the diagram? So trying to figure out where is your weakest point, what type of questions are you weak at, and then try to fix them. So then we'll tell you on how to fix them and see how that goes. And then for day 2, then again the same thing we'll do, except instead of listening we'll go for the reading test. And again, after the reading test, we'll try to find your weak points, so which type of questions you're weak at, and then we'll try to fix them. Then we'll move on to day 3. Day 3 will be the writing test. So in the writing test, we'll have the mock test for the writing, and then we'll try to find your weak points again, so where you're lacking at, and then we'll try to fix. As you know, in the finding the weak points for the writing, it's not gonna be about the question type. It comes to your criterias, on what criteria are you weak at, and we'll try to fix it. And for the day 4, we come to the mock test for the speaking, and then we'll see where's your flaws, and we'll try to fix those flaws, and we'll move on to day 5. So day 1 to day 4 is the time where we actually trying to find all the flaws, where the flaws are in which part, in each component, and then we're trying to fix all of them. And when we come to day 5, that's when we actually start trying to practice in doing the mock test of the whole test. As you know, the listening, reading, and writing is basically done all on the same day without breaks. The speaking is within that 7 days. It could be before or after the other 3 components. So then on the day 5, we actually do all of them together. As you know, IELTS is all about doing stuff in time bound. So we need to get used to in doing the whole test within the time limit that is given. So 40 minutes for listening, 60 minutes for reading, 60 minutes for writing, and the 11 to 14 minutes for speaking. So moving on, then we move on to the week 2. As you know, the session duration for the practice session is 2 weeks, but I'll get more into it if it could be more than 2 weeks as well. So moving on to week 2, here's the outline for the practice week 2. For the day 1, we have a feedback on the mock test that you had on the previous week, so on the last day of that specific week. Then we'll look into finding where your weak points were for the 4 specific tests that you had done, and we'll try to fix them. So for day 2, again we'll come to a complete mock test that how we had done on day 5 of the last week, of practice week 1, and then day 3 will be similar to how day 1 we had. First we'll look onto feedbacks of the mock test, and then we'll try to see what we were lacking on and try to fix all of that. Day 4 comes back to the mock test again. So you'll have another whole mock test of the listening, reading, writing and speaking test. And then on day 5 again, you'll have a feedback on the mock test, and then we'll try to find the mistakes we've had and we'll try to fix them. So here's the interesting part. After the 2 weeks of practice, then there's an option of a extra time that we also give. So here's the thing, in that there's no component duration. In the practice, once after the practice session is done, if in that time we'll still feel that the students, and personally if the students also feel that they haven't been able to be onto that full potential that they actually could be in for that specific IELTS test, then we actually give them free time to practice even more with no extra cost. But in that, conditions do apply, because of course we can't offer that to everyone. So students that are only eligible for this is if you had at least 90% attendance. That means you didn't actually bunk classes, you actually attended classes, unless sometimes, of course there could be good reasons why you wouldn't attend classes. There could be emergencies. No one's perfect. So we've actually put it to 90%. That means it's not purposely they actually didn't come to class. They have a genuine reason. So if 90% attendance is a tick for you, and also the second part is if you actually had done homework, if you've put in your efforts in homeworks. I know sometimes there could be homeworks that you don't understand, but there are actually options. If you don't understand, then you can always ask. So if we could see that, because we actually monitor your attendance and the homeworks that we give you. So we always have a progress sheet for students. So if we see that the students was actually putting in effort in their homework, so they weren't actually, okay, there's 1 week that he didn't do or she didn't do 2-3 homeworks, and what's the reason? I didn't get time. That's actually not a good reason. If you're actually serious about preparing for IELTS, then you actually have to put time for it, because as you know, you're actually fighting against time while you're doing the IELTS test. So if we see 90% attendance, and that's a tick for you. If you actually put in homework, that's a tick for you. Then we offer you extra time for practice without any extra cost. And that means practice time could be even 1 week for you, could be 2 weeks, could be even a month. We won't let you down if you don't let us down. Cool? So that's all for today, guys. I'm pretty sure if there's anything maybe that I couldn't make you guys understand specifically, so if there's any questions left for you guys that you have but I didn't answer them, then please do comment in our comment box below. And also if there's anything you can't comment in the comment box below, you can always flicker us a message. Cool? So we'll get back to you. So please do take care, and also the screenshots of our today's presentation will also be on our Facebook page. So make sure, if you haven't liked our Facebook page, please do like our Facebook page, and also share the post as well so that you can help others as well, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also give us a feedback on how you liked today's video. I'm pretty sure it's a bit longer today, but it's all the information that we could give you on our course outline. Thank you so much. So please keep liking our page and also sharing. Please do give us feedback. Thank you so much, and stay indoors, stay safe. Thank you.